All
So
right.
we're totally going to get it this time.
I think so. I think this is it. That looks
Let me
good.
see. That okay? That's the best I can do with my camera, unless I sit right in front of it.
No, I think it looks good.
If you could see the rest of the picture, I actually am sitting straddling a garbage bin with on top of it and my phone in there because that's all I have out here. So,
Oh, making it work. I know I'm at this like
yeah,
random cafe on a bench, so we'll have some
looks
people
good in the
walking
back there.
by. But yeah, I got some palm trees in the background.
That's awesome.
All right,
Well,
Brad.
I don't
Thank.
even know what we're doing really. I'm just going with the flow with what you're going to ask me, so let's figure it
Yeah,
out.
yeah. We'll just go with the flow. Um, all right. So tell everyone where you're joining us from.
Oh yeah, I'm in tropical, beautiful Maui here. I'm actually currently at Lumeria Retreat. It's a beautiful retreat on the North Shore, and I teach this one class. It's yeah, we'll probably do a little. You can't really see from here, but
Awesome.
there's the North Shore.
Ah, so rad.
That's that.
Beautiful in an awesome place.
Yeah, sure are.
Um, so I know that we'll tell everybody that this is Brad Hayes, and he's the Ayurvedic teacher on all of our yoga teacher trainings at the practice. So tell us a little bit about your background in yoga and Ayurveda and how that started and what came first.
Yeah, the chicken or the egg. Um,
Yeah, exactly.
Let's start. No, I'll go right back to my early years of being a hypersensitive child, I guess is where it really started.
Mm-hmm.
And that's where my interest in the mind and things like that really began. I used to get these visions. What I understand now is just me seeing energies,
Yeah.
probably like dogs do and not knowing what to do with it.
Uh-huh.
So luckily enough, I had a father who had been through the same thing, and he was very tapped into it. So he sort of taught me these little meditation techniques and things like that to help me deal with this. I would see things expanding and contracting. My teddy bear would get really big and then go really small. So it was kind of
Wow.
a really interesting thing to look back on it. I understand it a lot more now, but that got me interested really young as to the mind and energy and just, the world on a subtle level.
Mm-hmm.
So I began actually with martial arts at about 9 years old, and I was obsessed. I was obsessed with anyone with these superpowers of the mind and things. So
Yeah.
that's where it started, and from an early age, it was a lot of when I look back, a lot of what I was doing then was far more yogic than what's being taught in studios today. A lot of really deep stretching and deep sort of meditative breathing whilst doing that. So it was a lot of inner reflection.
Uh-huh.
Uh, and discipline and, a lot of things like that. So that's where it started. But when it really turned into yoga was I would say in the mid 90s.
Mm-hmm.
I transitioned from some martial arts into the yoga tradition in the 90s. Went to a few public classes. I never really did the public class thing a whole lot.
Uh-huh.
But was introduced to a couple of my early teachers right around 97 or 8. And they took me in privately and started teaching me traditional Raja yoga. So, the Patanjali, the sutra stuff, a lot of pranayamic practices.
Mm-hmm.
And they actually introduced me to some Ayurveda at that point. So I was in my 20s, mid-20s. And, they really took me under their wings. So that's when that started. And I started teaching right around then in 1999.
Yeah.
And it was very soon after that I wanted to delve in deeper. So I jumped into a 9-month full-time tantric training in Byron Bay in Australia, which was, a pretty life-changing experience. As you know, a 1 month is extremely intensive and amazing.
Yeah,
We did 9
absolutely.
months in Byron Bay with 36 people, and
Wow. Oh my gosh.
yeah, that kicked things off to another level. So that was an incredible process of really making this my whole life.
Yeah, for sure.
And that's also where I was introduced to Ayurveda. And from then on, it didn't stop. I started teaching a lot more after that training. started studying and practicing a lot more as well.
Mm-hmm.
And it wasn't long after that I met my current teacher, Rod Stryker, in the US, in
Yes.
Colorado, in 2006, and since then I've been practicing intensively with him, and also right about the same time I jumped deeply into the Ayurvedic studies. So I did I'd read a bunch of Robbie Svoboda's books,
Uh-huh.
Tantra and Ayurveda. So he was an incredible influence initially. So I did his online correspondence Ayurvedic course
Oh,
through
cool.
the Ayurvedic Institute.
Mm-hmm.
That was really what that did was just make me realize how much I needed to go and do a whole program. So I then sought after a school in the United States to go through and do the whole program, and I ended up at the California College of Ayurveda,
Mm-hmm.
Northern California, and did the whole program, and that was in 2010. So that, in a nutshell, I mean, that's a bit of the story. There's a lot in between the lines, but generally that's been the headlining factors and just making it my life, lots of self-study and reading
Yeah.
and close with my teacher's been an incredible journey. And, and that's brought us to here today.
Amazing. Amazing. And so for the people that are like, Ayurveda, I don't know what that is at all. And how would you just break that down really simply to explain the science of Ayurveda?
Yeah, it's such a great question because it's funny, even when people ask what yoga is now, I've been in this for so long and so deep. I have to I almost have to sit down and write out a new thing that I say. I forget that people sometimes have never even heard of these things, or they think yoga's, still stretching in leotards and things like that.
Yeah.
And all it is. So, in a nutshell, Ayurveda is, it's really the longest standing healing medical science on the planet.
Mm-hmm.
Really began back in the early days of man, where they were in the Vedic era, where basically they were in nature and still trying, and being early in the human race, they were figuring out what everything was. What was fire? What was the sun? What was day and night? Who am I? What am I?
Right.
How did I get here? All those interesting questions. So that's really when Ayurveda began. And the word itself actually breaks down into, in two parts, and you'll
Mm-hmm.
hear this in anything you read about Ayurveda. It really means Ayur, it means life or lifespan, or related there too. And Veda is the Sanskrit word for knowledge, and knowledge on a universal level. So the word itself means the science of life. So if I was to explain it in a nutshell, it's really what Ayurveda does is looks at each individual, knowing that each person has an individual makeup. They're all made up of different elements and different genes, and so we all need something very specific when it comes to treatment or what's good for us. Ayurveda understands that each individual has a very unique set of needs for who they are.
Yeah.
So so Ayurveda really uses all of the elements of nature to balance out the human experience. So that ranges from eating the correct foods for your type or the correct season.
Yes.
Also, there's all sorts of purification techniques on a daily level, and also there's very intensive what they call panchakarma. So they do these intensive programs where you get rid of the toxins in your bodies and clean out the whole system.
Mm-hmm.
Herbs, they use herbal medicines, herbal remedies of all kinds. There's a lot of psychology. There's a lot of you could call it coaching or psychological Vedic psychology that goes into it. So understanding how we're programmed mentally. And in India, they really go into the whole gamut of surgery. There's a certain aspect of Ayurveda that is plastic surgery.
Oh, really?
So they really go into depth. Yeah, absolutely. So it was the whole medical system of India for many, many years.
Mm-hmm.
So really it's a holistic science. It's a holistic health and medical science to keeping our bodies in as in as great a clear, balanced state as possible, so we can really have a great experience of life. And in the early days, it was really designed so you could be the most finely tuned instrument to do your spiritual studies, you know.
Absolutely.
And in modern days, it's so you can be more happy and healthy, you know, as well as do your spiritual practice. But if you can just become more healthy and happy, then that's the goal of Ayurveda. So really, it's, you know, it's a healing science. Sorry, I keep plugging my earphones in, but they keep falling out.
That's okay.
It's a healing science. It's one of the most sophisticated, oldest healing sciences on the planet. And it's becoming more prevalent again today because it's so needed. People are understanding that a lot of the current treatments in the medical system is not, you know, it works here and there for the right people at the right time. But I think the influence of Ayurveda is going to make everything a lot more effective, knowing that each individual needs something different, something very specific.
Yeah, absolutely.
Ayurveda is.
Yeah, I think that was really helpful. That was a really good breakdown. Helped me understand a lot more things too.
Yeah, I say it different every time somebody asks me, but that's what came up today.
Yeah, that's great. So how can we connect Ayurveda with our yoga practice?
Yeah, so that's such a great question. And I think that's initially what got me into it. And just going back to my history again, I jumped, you know, I could probably look at things as I did them a little bit backwards if you look at things very systematically. I jumped into tantric practices head on, you know, earlier on in my yogic life experience. But then realized after I got into these deeply powerful and refined practices of tantra and yoga, you know, hatha yoga and asana and meditation and pranayama, I realized my body needed a lot more fine tuning. Needed a lot more. I needed to have a more balanced vessel for all of this energy and power that these yogic techniques were bringing into me. So the link between Ayurveda and yoga is basically in the early days, the gurus or the teachers would teach their students Ayurveda before they taught any yoga. They basically said, we've got to purify your vehicle or your system and stabilize it, you know, so get rid of the impurities, stabilize it and make it this strong vessel that can hold a greater capacity for energy, and then we'll start working with the energies, you know. So that's what I saw now. There's so many people out there who are already so imbalanced and overstimulated and worn down, and their immune systems are beat up and nervous systems are beat up, and their diets are really, you know, off the side. And then they start doing all these extreme practices of hatha yoga. Right. And it's actually not that helpful if your system's not ready for it. It can kind of just make those symptoms even more stronger. You can be more nervous and, you know, your immune can get worn down too much. If you've got a low immune and you do this, you know, sweating, constant vinyasa or a very, very active practice, then it's actually depleting you even more. So the link is Ayurveda really sets you up and supports you to do the more subtle practices of both yoga and tantric yoga. Yeah, that's the link. So it's really, honestly, the way I look at it now is they really shouldn't be separated, and they're actually one in the part of a bigger system.
Same system, yeah.
I call it tantra because tantra really includes all of these things. You know, that's what. Yeah. Awesome.
So I know we have some practices online about doing different yoga practices for your dosha, right? For your type. Right. So can you talk to us a little bit about the three doshas and maybe like the qualities of each and why we would practice maybe for a kapha imbalance and how that would be different from a pitta imbalance and some along the lines of those things?
Yeah, absolutely. And just for the sake of this conversation, I'll keep it very simple because it can get very complicated.
Absolutely, just the real most simplistic, and if people are interested, they can dive deeper into it outside of this.
They can come to my program in Bali in October.
Exactly, there you go.
So that you know, if you read anything on Ayurveda or go onto any websites, the headlining things you'll see is basically the three doshas, and it is a very foundational piece of the whole system. The three doshas come from the five elements, and any great Eastern or any of the Eastern medical sciences understand that we are all made up of 5 elements.
Mm-hmm.
And the Ayurveds actually broke these elements down into pairs, and they called them doshas. These are the biological humors in the body. So we are all made up of all the 5 elements, which means we all have all 3 of the doshas within us.
Yes.
And the word dosha itself actually means that which can be imbalanced.
Mm-hmm.
Seeing that's what dosha means. It means that which goes out of balance, which basically means anything in this dualistic world will go out. So the doshas are in the body, and they each have a role, specific role in the body. And I'll start with Vata dosha. Vata or Vata. It's spelt with a V, but it's pronounced with a W. Vata, and it actually means wind, or force. And it's made up of air and ether, and its role in the body is basically to move everything around. Its role is to push the other doshas around, or the other elements around, where they need to go. So circulation, respiratory, thought, stimulation, nerve impulses, all of those things are governed by the movement of Vata dosha. Okay, so it's such an important role in the system. And generally Vata gets a bad rap, So the other, but it's not the case at all. It's only when Vata's in excess that it's going to cause problems. Same with any of the doshas.
Do you think it gets a bad rap because in our today's society, a lot of us have a Vata imbalance?
Yeah, that's one of the reasons for sure. And it is the least stable of the doshas, so it tends to and it can tend to be the one that goes out of balance a lot, like you just said, with our current lifestyles and that, absolutely. But it's an important role. We're in balance, when it's balanced, it really governs all the body's functions to one degree or another. We look into the prana vayus, which I won't go into right now, but they are all subsets of the Vata dosha, and they all play a very important role in the body, like our digestive system, our circulatory system, our system of elimination. They're all different movements in the body that are governed by Vata, air and ether. So they're pushing around these things in the body and making them go where they need to go. Yeah. So that's Vata dosha. I'll go through all the doshas, and then I'll go through the characteristics a little bit. Okay. And then Pitta dosha. Pitta is made out of fire and water, and its main role in the system is metabolism, assimilation. If you think of fire, its role is to break things down and transform them into other things. So on one level, that can be at a level of food, break food down and turn it into our physical body, which is pretty incredible. Just in this, you eat some vegetables or whatever you eat, a banana, and it turns into nerve tissue or skin or muscle or bone or one of the 7 tissues. It's pretty wild. Yeah. So that's the role of fire in the body, is to break things down and, break the food down and turn it into elements, and then send the elements out into the doshas and all the tissues in the body. So on that level, it's to process and assimilate foods. On another level, Pitta also has a process in the mind of assimilating thoughts and impressions. Anything that comes in that we see or that comes in through any of the senses, any of the 5 senses, has to be assimilated through a subset of Pitta dosha. So its role is all kinds of assimilation and digestion in the system. And it's the only dosha that's actually hot on its own, because it has the fire element in it. Right. So, another crucial, important role. We can't live without any of them. They're a team, Yeah. And the third one is kapha, which is Kapha. And it's made up of earth and water. And its role is really about giving us form, giving us our body and its substance. And it also has sub roles of lubrication of the joints, lubrication of the digestive system, so it doesn't get burnt from the acids. All of that sort of thing. So anything in the form of solidity is going to be from the Kapha dosha. So if we're talking about imbalances, we'll go back to Vata dosha. Because it's made up of air and ether and it's the least stable, some imbalances can be feeling really scattered, ungrounded and unearthed. Anxiety is a really, pretty common, what we call a Vata imbalance. Yeah. I think probably a pretty high percentage of ADHD diagnostics are probably just a really chronic vata imbalance to some degree.
Mm-hmm.
And so, really feeling ungrounded, unstable, it can really dry out your system. So certain dryness in the skin or dryness in the digestive system.
Mm-hmm.
Other symptoms of vata imbalance is constipation. It dries out your inner digestive
Right.
system, so things don't move very well. It can be in your digestive fire, it can be very variable. So a lot of variability and instability, on any, whether it be in your physical body or in your mind.
Mm-hmm.
It can be vata imbalances. And symptoms of pitta imbalances are that related to fire. So they can also have skin rashes and things like that is how pitta shows up. You can have burning, indigestion in the system. You can have sort of runny elimination or very loose stools and elimination.
Mm-hmm.
What else? Pitta can get a little bit intense and tend towards anger as a kind of a reactive nature of having too much pitta.
Right.
They can be very impatient, very critical and judgmental, things like that. So that's pitta imbalances.
Yep.
So we'll go through the positive and negative traits of each dosha.
Perfect.
And there's more. These are the ones off the top of my head right now. And kapha imbalances, being that the kapha is made up of earth and water elements, the more heavier, dense ones, they can tend to be feel quite sluggish, have a very sluggish digestive system. They can tend towards a real lack of motivation, getting out of bed and getting to do anything at all, generally.
Mm-hmm.
On a sort of emotional level, they can tend towards being very attached to things. Change. They don't really like change. They just like everything to be exactly the same, very consistent, because they're sort of, in part of their natural state. These imbalances can show up on any level, physical level, on an emotional level. I guess I didn't speak to Vata's emotional level, but Vata's sort of emotional expression is fear on a negative level. They become very fearful and ungrounded.
Yeah.
So they're the negative traits.
Mm-hmm.
The roles and then the negative traits of each one, or when they're out of balance. That's what we look to in some part of when I'm treating people. It's really looking to see what the symptoms are, and then following a pathology chart as to what's causing those symptoms. And then generally we want to reduce the dosha that's become too high or in excess. We want to reduce that through herbs or through a lifestyle or through a diet, or through a specific treatment or a specific yoga practice even. There's many different ways that we can reduce the doshas.
Right.
But first what we look at in Ayurveda is what's causing the imbalance, and we want to take that away. What we call it, the cause is called the nidana.
Uh-huh.
So like you were in some of the lectures where I talk about putting your hand on the fire, holding it in the fire and getting burnt, and then just wanting to put some kind of treatment on top without pulling it out of the fire first.
Yeah.
My good extreme examples. Well, that's an example, is we want to remove the cause of the imbalance initially before we start treating it.
Wouldn't you say that's the biggest difference between, or one of the big differences between like Ayurveda and Western medicine, is that it's not just about covering up the imbalance or the disease. It's really about finding the source of it and correcting it from there.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, that's exactly right. It's
just so much healthier.
Really, it really is. And Ayurveda, the stages of awareness that when we become more aware of ourselves, the body gives off all of these symptoms and messages that's out of balance, And if you can hit them early enough on, you can bring yourself back into balance before it turns into a disease. A lot of times in Western medicine, it's kind of it doesn't even have a name until it's gone way through a process till it's actually got to a disease state, and it becomes quite difficult to treat.
Right, makes sense, yeah.
So that's exactly right. It's one of the big differences, and just along those lines, another big difference is Ayurveda really focuses on a lot of preventative, yourself in balance, keeping yourself balanced enough that we don't even get to these sort of more chronic or critical
Yeah,
states of,
exactly.
yeah,
So important. So,
yeah.
so important. So I just have a couple more questions for you. So for somebody that's just, listening to this and wants to kind of start tomorrow, incorporating a little bit of
Hmm.
Ayurveda into their lifestyle, can you share maybe like a couple of morning rituals that they could do or things like
Yeah, for
that,
sure.
or even maybe how they're eating?
Yeah, absolutely. Um, there's a lot of, I'll just speak to this because I'm pretty adamant about this too, but there's a lot of self-diagnostic little dosha quizzes online.
Yeah, yeah.
Um, I just want to say, just use them for fun or don't use them at all
Mm-hmm.
because it's too tricky to diagnose yourself,
Absolutely.
in a certain level. But there are definitely general daily and general eating guidelines or daily practices that are good for all doshic types or pretty much all imbalances. And one is to scrape your tongue with the tongue scraper in the morning. So you get
Mm-hmm.
up and you scrape the impurities off the tongue. A lot of toxins come out of the tongue and they build up there. And a lot of the time that's where bad breath and things come from. And plus it's good to just get rid of the toxins out of your system. So simply getting a copper or a stainless steel, or if you can get a gold one, go and get a gold one.
If you
Um,
fancy.
I don't have one yet, but maybe someday. And you simply scrape the film off your tongue in the mornings.
You know you made it when you've got that 24 karat gold tongue scraper on the kitchen, on
Yeah,
the
yeah.
bathroom sink.
I'll make that a goal.
I
Have
like it.
sapphires in there. Um, so yeah, simple tongue scraping, really, really a great thing. You can get them anywhere. Generally, at a decent health store, they'll have a tongue scraper.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, it also stimulates your digestive system for the day to get it going in the morning. So hits the tongue, it starts stimulating digestion and cleans the impurity off the tongue. So that's really, really helpful. Another one is a neti pot. This is just sort of an essential for yogis that are doing, that are really concentrating on breath work and all these sort of
Right.
very intricate energy systems and sensory systems up in your nasal passage. It's a little pot, and you put saline water in it with non-iodized salt in it, like a quarter of a teaspoon. So it just depends on the size of your neti pot. It's like a little teapot. And then you pour it through one nostril. It goes up through your nasal passage and through and bridges and comes out the other side.
It's a really fun time.
And everyone thinks it's hilarious when I do that in class. But for me, I've been doing it, daily for, 20 plus years now. And it's just a normal part of life. But I guess for the regular person that's not used to it, it's a weird thing.
It's quite the party trick for someone that's never seen it before.
Right. They probably don't even know that the nasal passages join up there. So how's it come out the other side?
Right.
So that cleans, what that does on one level is cleans out your nasal passage just on a physical level. Like, there's fine hairs in there that purify the air. So they pick up dust particles and things like that. So they, fewer of them get into your lungs or into your system, So it clears that out, and makes for more easy breathing on one level. And just to have this passage, be, moisturized, it actually, after you do the neti pot out each side of the nostril, you probably want to put oil up in there. So another thing the nose and breathing through the nostrils do is it moistens the air that goes into your body, because your body wants moist air. If it has dry air, it's going to dry out the tissues. So to clear that passage out and then put some oil, you can put coconut oil or olive oil or, I can't even think of the basic other oils at the moment. Put any sort of oil up.
Jojoba, sesame.
Yeah,
Like
sesame oil is a good one, anything like that. You can go according to your dosha.
Right.
That little amount won't really overstimulate doshas too much, but just having the oil in your nose is going to be really helpful.
Cool.
So yeah, just for the process of breathing and the process of clearing out this passage of that scent, is really important, really important. So there are two things. Even just to have a glass of warm water with lemon in the morning, just to also moving your digestive system, getting, it's great to eliminate, early in the day if you can, just get rid of the food and sitting there and processing from the day before. Move them on so your digestive system is going to be more clear and ready to process more things in that day. So, a cup of tea is good. Warm water with lemon is great. A little bit of honey, a cup of coffee's generally not ideal, but it's still warm water, so it could probably help you go to the toilet. It's more just the warm water that's actually going to help you move solids out.
Mm-hmm.
So that's a really good practice to do in the morning. And these things don't take very long. You know, you can do all those things in a few minutes.
Right.
Another really great one to pacify Vata dosha is, it's called Abhyanga, and it's a self-oil massage, basically. And you don't really have to do too much massaging. It's just an application of oil over your whole body. You can do it on just your shins and your feet too, or just your arms and legs. But if you can do your whole body and cover it in a specific oil for your dosha, it's incredible what that does for your nervous system and to build your immunity and your body support system back up. Try not to use too many Sanskrit terms that we don't know, but in Arabic it's called ojas. But it translates into your primal vigor or your body's strength. So it's like creates this coating on your nerve cells is kind of how I see it.
Mm-hmm.
And really supports them. So it pacifies Vata dosha. It's really, really incredibly powerful how it does that. So that's another one you can do daily, especially if you have a Vata imbalance or you're a Vata constitution person. Daily would be no problem at all. And if you live in a dry area.
Yeah, if you're where I am right now in Orange County, California, it's so dry here compared to Bali. I've been doing coconut oil every morning or else I'm like cracking.
There you go. Exactly. Yeah, perfect. And coconut oil is probably great for your constitution.
Yes.
You know, whereas out here in the tropics, like you say, Bali or here, Hawaii,
right.
I don't have the need for it as much. But if I was a Vata, you know, more Vata tendencies, then I would do it out here as well.
Yeah, for sure.
There's some really great morning practices. You know, and you can start getting really refined to eating specifically for your dosha in the morning. You know, there's certain times that each specific dosha should eat. So, you know, that gets a little bit more personalized. You know, pitters tend to want to eat a little bit earlier because their digestion's ready to go.
Right.
Kaphas, let's skip breakfast or have a very light breakfast as late as possible. You'll probably want to exercise a little bit first. And Vatas are a little bit more variable, so eating, you know, probably mid-range in the middle of the morning and smaller amounts and things like that. So it gets a little bit more specific.
Yeah.
And also, you know, on the yogic level, the morning ritual is really kind of one of the better times to do your yoga practices, you know, your meditation, your breathing practices. One thing is that it sets you up for your day. You know, it sets your mind. You know, when you wake up and you do some self-care, it's amazing how that changes how you feel. Rather than waking up, the alarm's gone off, and I've got to run to the car to go to work. You know,
right.
I'm pissed off before I even get out the door, you know.
Right.
So it's nice to spend this time, you know, preparing yourself for the day, getting your mind set, getting your body set up, digestive system set. Okay, I'm ready to face the day. You know, that could be that alone can be a massive part. It's actually really one of the primary things we focus on with clients is getting a morning ritual, which it's called a dinacharya, so a daily ritual.
Yeah, so important.
So much, so effective. Yeah.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, that's great. I know that for me, all those things that you taught us with your morning ritual definitely changed the way I live and feel. So hopefully everybody will start doing that.
Yeah, you tend to not want to miss it in the end. It's like, wow, I didn't do my neti today. What? Kind of enjoy it. Well, it's a chore to not do it.
Definitely. And then let's just go a little bit about like the food practice. In a general, I don't want to go too specific about eating specifically for your type. But just in general, I think that there are some maybe practices that we could all kind of benefit from as far as maybe eating goes, maybe not in your car all the time or in a rush or in front of the TV maybe.
Yeah, it's huge, Nikki. Yeah, you're absolutely right. It's such a big thing now, and this was something I noticed greatly when I first started being really more aware. My eating was kind of one of the last things I tidied up, and I kept getting these messages saying, you've got to change your eating food habits and your how you're doing. And primarily in Ayurveda, it's also one of the initial things we look at. So yeah, general eating guidelines that are good, that are sort of something that we all can look to that aren't specific to dosha is, well, let me state first that Ayurveda states that how you eat is more important than what you eat.
Yes.
You know, and nutritionists will cringe at that. You know, and not stating that they're both not important, but it's just stated in the text that how you eat is so important, not just what you eat, but how you eat and how your digestive system is. So how we eat, really, we have to start looking at it as a process of like a ritual almost, because as we said earlier, our food turns into our body's tissues.
Right.
So it's pretty crucial how that process goes down. And we want to first direct our attention to the process that we're eating. This is one of the primary tantric sort of principles, is energy follows thought. So if I'm looking at my food, or I'm getting in the process of thinking, my digestion is going to start getting prepared for the food. If I'm looking at it and smelling it, then it knows kind of what it has to do and what food it's going to have to get ready for. So it's such an intelligent system. It's just a matter of us paying attention to what we're doing. So I think that's huge. One part is to stop everything else first. Like sitting at the computer. How many of my clients sit at their computer and shoving? They don't even know if it's an apple or a coffee cup. It could be a plate. They're just chomping away on cardboard and paper and they don't know it. But they're at the computer. They don't even stop. It's just like shove it in, barely look to it to get it in their mouth.
Right.
That's horrible. So we really want to stop just for set our attention to the process of eating. Saying like an affirmation, or people get triggered by the word prayer sometimes, but a prayer or making a little statement, or just setting an intention of, it can be as simple as like, bless this food and may it support me to do my work in the world, or may this food make me healthy, or you can bless all the hands that the food has been through, or you can, if you're eating meat, you can bless the animal, and thank it, or anything. And you can go to whatever extreme you like. Yeah. But a simple acknowledgement, I think, is really huge, and you don't have to do anything sing to your food and dance around it. Anything. If you want to,
you can, but
you might. But you can just do it internally. You can close your eyes, take 3 deep breaths, and just bless the process. Say, may this, this food I'm about to eat nourish me, guide me through the day.
And I think just slowing down and even just taking that pause already is setting you up for success and focusing on your meal.
Exactly. Yeah, it can be as simple as that. Just slowing down and going, I'm about to eat. It's exactly right. These things don't have to be complicated. In fact, the more simple ones are the more effective ones. It's just a matter of being really, really attentive to what we're doing. That's slow down, take a few breaths before you're about to eat. Another one is to really chew your food up. Yeah. Well, there's no magic number of chews, chew 32 times. I hear that as a kid. Depends what you're eating, and it depends how many teeth you have and how good your teeth are. Generally, it's chew till the food's the same consistency. It's all the same mushy consistency in your mouth. There's no lumps in it. And then you're good to go. So that's another factor that's everyone honing on. Like I said earlier, try not to eat while you're driving a vehicle. I mean, we all do it to some degree. I still do it occasionally now. It's just how it is, but keep that to a minimum. Yeah. You're just not going to digest as well if you're driving. Even if you're eating the most organic, raw, whatever it is. If you're not digesting it properly, it might as well be a McDonald's hamburger. Right. It's just not going to process well in your body. So, as little distractions as possible. If you can be in a nice environment, even better, if you can be in a little garden environment and outside, or at least away from your office, or not on your, in your work area, just sort of remove yourself from that and change the environment. No loud music or anything like that. Some quiet mellow music's fine. Candles I find are amazing to eat, stimulate your digestive fire as well.
I like that.
So there's some basic things, not too much fluids. You can drink a little bit of fluid depending on your constitution too, but generally not too much more than half a cup. Once again, depending on how dry the food is you're eating and all that. But, generally not too much liquid to dilute your acids that digest the food. What else can I say to eating? There's sort of some of the general guidelines. There's also a thing in Ayurveda that says, or a shloka that says, eat till you're 75% full. There's apparently a little burp. I have felt it at times when I'm really paying attention, but there's apparently this little burp that comes up naturally when you're 75% full.
Really?
But just,
Oh, so pay attention to that. Yeah.
Yeah, I don't think it happens all the time for everyone. I think it's more of you're very in tune and your system's all working very well, then that will happen.
Right.
But it's just stating, don't just like gorge yourself full just because it's a whole big, especially in America, obviously they want to make everything bigger and better.
Oh
So
gosh, yeah.
feels like it's more value. And not just America, but, don't eat too much just because it's all on the plate,
Right.
especially if your system is sluggish or it can't handle it. If you're a pitter, you've got a little bit more. If you're a fiery sort of digestive type, you could probably tend to process a little more food. But generally, just be aware of when you're full, not when you're over full. They state that because your system's belly is meant to be sort of 25% water, what I recall, and then 75% food. So, but not too close to the food. Maybe 20 minutes, half an hour before food.
Yes.
So just saving some, room for fluids in there and not overgorging, So there's some really good general tips that everyone can follow. And honestly, that alone really changes people's lives. And I've seen, I don't know how many consultations I've done now. It's not thousands, but I've done probably 400 consultations. And you really get to see these things are the things that change people's lives.
Mm-hmm.
Not so much getting them on a really refined diet for their constitution. I mean, that can come later, and it depends on the imbalance for sure.
Right.
But getting these basic rhythms, daily rhythms down, if I eat at a consistent time each day, is actually a really good one too, because your system starts training itself so it's ready for food at midday, And there's another point: eat your biggest meal or your heaviest meal at midday when the fire's the brightest in the day in nature. So that's generally when your digestion is the strongest.
Right.
That's another thing. Don't eat too late at night. If you can stop eating before 6 or 7. Ideal. You don't want to be digesting food while you're sleeping. That's another really good point. So nothing too heavy at night. They're the headliners. That's what I would say headline. And then we can start getting really refined as to what you're eating and specific times and things like that. But they're general.
No, I think those are great. And they're such simple things that we can incorporate into our day to day. I mean, they're not always easy, but it is really simple if we can't make that conscious choice.
Yeah.
To live that way.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. No, it's such a good, you just nailed it there. It's a lot of these things aren't complicated.
Yeah.
The complicated part is changing your mindset to actually
Absolutely.
do them. Programs I write sometimes are so simple. The complicated part of them is how I'm going to actually help this client get to do them.
Right. Yeah,
It might, I've worked with people for months just to get them to eat lunch. But with all these, like setting an alarm, or having, generally I don't want to have to call people to remind them, but if it gets to that, let's set up a reminder call.
Yeah.
Seriously. But it makes a huge difference in their world.
Right.
It's an immense change for people to just stop, have a few breaths and eat.
Mm-hmm.
Digestive system. You can just feel so much right there.
Yeah, absolutely. Oh, such good stuff, Brad.
Yes, I get so excited talking about it.
I know, me too. I'm like, more and more. But yeah, that was really great. I think everyone could learn a lot from those really basic tools that Ayurveda gives us. But if they are interested in learning more, how can we find out more stuff about you? Where are you going to be? How can we take classes from you, consultations, all that good stuff? This is the self-plug moment.
Self-plug moment. Yeah, good. I wish I was a little more organized for it, but my teaching's about to take off again. I've been teaching for 20 years now, just about, and at different periods I teach a lot more. The last couple of years after having our child, it was a little bit less.
Right.
A lot of other things we were doing. But I'm about to really take off again this year. And a lot of it's going to be in Bali at the end of this year, 2018.
Amazing.
Like my website, now I've kind of refined everything down to one website. I used to have two. Now it's bradhay.com. So BRADHAY.com.
Cool.
And there's going to be a lot more events on the calendar this year. They're not on there just yet, but there's one coming up at the practice October 8th to October 21st. It's a 100-hour Ayurvedic yoga specialist immersion or intensive training program.
Yeah.
So that's going to be super cool. So 100 hours is 2 solid weeks we'll go through a lot of this stuff more in depth. We'll look at how to practice specifically for your, for pacifying each of the doshas, for stimulating digestion, for reducing heat, for increasing heat, for, calming the mind, for stimulating the mind. Anything you need to do, we have a way to approach all the practices. So this training will be so great for people that teach. Just for your own practice initially, is
right.
Really what we should be doing first is for our own practice. But for those that teach or work with people privately or in groups, this information's I think it's essential. I think it's essential. If you're teaching yoga and don't know the principles of Ayurveda, you're missing out on such a huge foundational piece of it.
Yeah.
It all comes from there. It all comes from those teachings. So that's coming up in October. The practice trainings are incredible. I teach on those.
You'll be teaching on them. I think there's one end of April, right? Will you be there for that one?
I'm not 100% sure if I'm going to make the May one because we're coming in July and I'll be there for 6 months.
Oh, okay, but you'll definitely be there in September.
I'll definitely be there in September, and then also for the 300 hour in October, November. I don't know when it is. We'll have to look at the practice website.
Yes, I think mid-October the 300 hour begins.
Yeah,
probably right after your 100 hour.
Exactly.
You'll be busy at the practice.
I love it. I love teaching at the practice. There's such a supportive, incredible crew. I'm really happy to start collaborating more. So there'll be a lot more collaborating with the practice crew, just because it's so conducive to the work that I do and we that carrying this more traditional approach to. So that's why I'm more than happy. And they're just nice, cool people. They're just cool to hang out with. Not to mention that the studio setting is kind of one of the nicest there is.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more.
Canggu, it's got everything going for it. So, so there'll be all that at the practice, and there'll be a lot more. I think I'm going to be teaching in Australia a lot more as well. I actually think moving back to Australia at the end of this year. So I'm going to be based in Australia and hitting it all 200% from here on in. So there'll be a lot more. Keep an eye out. A lot more.
Yeah.
So there are some ways at the moment, you can get in touch with me over my website too. I do consultations online.
Okay.
As well. Not a ton at the moment, but I'll be doing a lot more of them pretty soon. So get in touch. And I can put you on my email list too if you want to email me and go on there, and I'll let you know of all the events coming up.
Perfect. Well, we'll stay in touch and follow and keep learning more, because this stuff is life-changing. For sure.
It really is, yeah. One more little piece. Brad Hay Yoga and Ayurveda is Facebook. That's so good.
Oh, yes, absolutely. Facebook or Instagram, whatever your social media stuff, that's helpful too. Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Say that one more time.
Brad Hay Yoga and Ayurveda.
Okay.
It used to be Pranavidya, but I changed it to my name because I'm not a studio anymore.
Perfect.
Very happy about that, yeah.
We'll add you there as well. Thank you so much, Brad.
Awesome. Well, thanks, Nikki. Really, really great to talk with you again. I'll be seeing you soon. In the next few months. Yeah, sometime in the next few months. Looking forward to it.
Yeah, I'll meet you back in Bali. All right. Thanks so much, Brad. Have a great rest of your day.
Bye. Thanks.
Okay. Bye.
Bye, guys. Bye.